Hi guys, I'm Anissa and I'm back with another video. Today is Friday, so it's time for another Friday read. I'm feeling a little off today. I have a headache and I'm on pain meds. So all I want to do right now is just speaking Danish. So if I'm a little incoherent while I'm talking today, please bear with me. Obviously, I don't think it would go over very well if I was to speak in Danish, because I don't think a lot of people would be able to understand what I'm saying. The majority of my viewers definitely wouldn't, and I don't feel like putting a lot of subtitles. So, and it will also be very strange since I'm usually speaking in English. Anyway, let's get into the actual video. Friday reads are where I'm talking about the books that I've been working on over the weekend, if I've had any finishes, and what I'm planning on reading over the weekend. Yeah, it's the Easter break, so I have a couple of days that I don't have a lot of plans. In Denmark, the Easter holidays include Thursday, Friday and Monday as well, apart from the weekend. So it's a 5-day weekend, 5-day long weekend, and it's nice to have a couple of days off. Yesterday I went to visit my brother, who made a Easter lunch, and it was very great. He made a lot of different things and he's a really decent cook, so it's always interesting seeing what he has of things that he wants to serve for us. But let's get into the books, because over this past week, since last time I talked to you, since my last Friday reads, I have managed to finish 4 things, which is really good, my opinion. Last Sunday I finished 2 books. The first part of Jane Eyre, which the Danish edition, the translated one, is divided into 2 sections for some strange reason, and it's more or less split pretty evenly. The font is pretty large, but I ended up not actually reading this, but I listened to the majority of this in audio, so I just stopped when this stopped last weekend. Now, obviously Jane Eyre is a very popular book. It's a classic. Everyone and his mother has read it except apparently me. I always want to try and read a few more classics, although classics are not usually something I enjoy reading in the same way I think a lot of other people enjoy it. I sometimes find some that are really great, and for the most part I just feel a little bored while I'm reading it. I don't know if it's the writing style or the pacing that is a lot different than the pacings of books are today, but this one is one of those that I've actually enjoyed a lot. I'm not going to talk much more about it because obviously a lot of people know the story, but I really enjoy. What I enjoy about this is that I really like Jane as a character. She's really a nice character to follow, and I think that she has some interesting ways of seeing things, and even though things are not always goes as great as she wanted to, I think the way that she handles things is really interesting. I think the first part of this, which I rated about a 4 stars, and I think that's what I was thinking, so we'll see how it ends up when I read the second part. The other thing that I also finished last weekend was Born by Jeff Vandermeer. This is one of the booktubesff nominees in the science fiction category, and this follows this girl called Rachel. Is in a sort of dystopian sort of future where and it's in the genre sort of new weird, but she's living in this house with this guy called Wick, and one day she comes across this thing. It looks a little bit like a plant, and she knows that it's not, it's something different, and she calls it Born and takes it home with her, and yeah, things start to change. She doesn't really know how he eats, and if he said he, if he said she doesn't really know a lot about Born. As things go along. She started to sort of raise Born as a child, as something. So she's teaching it things and having a lot of fun with that. Even though Wick is very not supportive in that way, because he thinks that it would be better if he takes it into the lab and sort of tries to run some tests on them so she can figure out if it's in danger to her or something. And as things get progress, you find out that he eats and eats all of these different things, but nothing ever comes out of him again. I'm not gonna say a lot more about the plot in this. I think it's dividing waters a little bit. There's a lot of people who can't get by the weirdness of the story, and it definitely is very strange, the writing and the setting and all of that. But I found Born to be super fascinating, and I just wanted to know more about him and what he is and what he did. And I think Rachel was an interesting character as well, and Wick as well, as time progressed. And the way that Jeff Vandermeer wrote it, it made me really emotionally connected to the story as things went along. And that was something I really enjoyed, and I really highly recommend the audio. I ended up listening to the majority of this in audio, even though I also read a little bit of it in ebook form. The audio narration was really, really great, and she brought the story really well alive. And I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I was really impressed with the story overall, but there were some things that was a little too strange, but I still think that it was a really great story, and I understand if the reasons for people not enjoying it as much, because if you don't get interested in Born as a character and what he is and that storyline, I don't think this book will be for that person. Another thing that I finished this week was The Stand by Stephen King. This beast of a book is way too long, and the narration of the audio was not the best. I mean, in the beginning I thought it was okay, it was not something that I was annoyed with, but as time goes on and you've been listening to this narrator for I don't know how long, things just changed a little bit with how I viewed the narration style, and I'm happy I'm not gonna be listening to that audio any longer. However, I really enjoyed the book. There was a lot of interesting characters, and they had, yeah, lots of things happened in, it was like shown from multiple characters' perspectives, and yeah, just jumping a little bit around. And it's an interesting dystopian novel of after a bad what is called pandemic hits and sort of erases 99% of the world population, so there's not a lot of people left, and sort of how they try to survive, and the good versus evil. Some people want to hoard people to their end, and some people are trying to do the right thing. It's just really interesting, and it was a great book, but it was a little too wordy, it was a little too long, and I end up giving it a 4 stars because I still think overall that I really enjoyed the book. But I think that if at one point I might actually consider reading it, and I'll be reading it in its written form, so I'm planning on getting my own copy of the book so that I can read it properly. Yeah, so that was the 3rd finish this week. Last and final finish that I did this week was this morning I finished reading The 5 Daughters of the Moon by Lina Likitalo. This is the first book in a duology that surrounds the sort of a retelling of the Romanovs, the last Romanovs of Russia. And that was the only thing that I needed to know before going into this, because I am pretty fascinated with the story of that. Mostly I want to read this about conspiracy theories and stuff. I really like, I really like Anastasia, the animated movie that was about the conspiracy theory that maybe Anastasia wasn't killed in the massacre against the Romanovs, and that she survived it. Because there was for a long time this conspiracy theories that Anastasia and Nikolai didn't actually die. Because they didn't find any bodies. They were missing some bodies at the mass grave after those events, and so there's been a lot of conspiracy surrounding that. But obviously, as time passed, they didn't manage to figure out what happened to the other bodies, and that there were no survivors. But still, I think that when the people put some twists on that, I think always find it a little funny. But anyway, I knew going into this that this was going to be just a retelling of how everything went down, and that it's a sad story, tragic story, so I know that it's gonna end bad, and I sort of like that I know that she doesn't sugarcoat it, she doesn't try to do something that was not real, and that's something I enjoy about it. This story is written so that you see chapters from each of the sisters, the Fry sisters, and they have very different distinctive voices, and I felt like the first half of the book or something, I was really immersed in the story. I thought it flowed really well and quickly and all of that, but then I think around the halfway point it changed its pacing a little bit, where there's the start of the revolution. All of the girls were put on this train to travel to another distance, quite a far distance, and so the last part of the book actually is spent on that train, and it dragged a little bit, the pacing, and I think that it got a little bit boring, even though there's still some things that happened that was really interesting, and I think the ending of the book was very interesting, and yeah, so I'm really interested in reading the next one. But this particular book, I think I would give 3 out of 5 stars. It didn't live up to my expectations, but it was still a pretty great book, and I hope that the second book will wrap things up in a good way. I think it will become a lot darker because of things that's going to be happening. Grigori Petroslov is a terrible villain in, yeah, and he, that is, if you think of Rasputin and his prophecies and stuff, that's basically what Petroslav is. Yeah, but those were the finishes that I had over the week. Next I'm gonna be talking about the books that I'm currently working on, and I hope I will finish over the weekend, and we'll see what else I pick up over the next week. First up, I am currently working on the second part of Jane Eyre. I'm actually quite far into it. I have about 150 or so pages left of the second part, so I just surpassed the halfway point, and I have definitely been enjoying the next part as well. I hope to finish that today, as I'm doing things around the house. I've been listening to this while I've just been sitting around. But it's strange because when I try to sort of read this and listen, I notice there's a bit of a difference between the audio narration and the translated this edition. I mean, they're both in Danish, but the translation is a little different, and that's something I find a little curious and fun, but I still enjoy it a lot. The other book that I would like to finish over the weekend is The Song of Achilles, or Achilles' Sang, which is the Danish translated edition. Currently I'm on page 77. I put this tab in to see where I'm done with the first part of what we're discussing on the Discord group, but I just want to try and finish this over the weekend. If not else, I have the most of Monday as well because I have that day off as well, but I still have Saturday and Sunday to read this, so I might be doing that. So far I'm enjoying it. It's a Greek mythology sort of fantasy book where we follow this boy called Patroclus or something like that, and Achilles, as they're forming a friendship which eventually develops into something more, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's the writing is a little flowery, but I'm still enjoying it a lot. I know that it only gets better from here, and it's a little bit of angsty and will be pulling on my heartstrings a bit, I think. Long, and there's going to be the War of Troy and all of that. But this is also another book that I like to finish over the weekend. I'm not sure what else I want to read. I sort of want to just see what I pick up on a whim. I think I might look into The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, which I just recently got on my overdrive, I think sometime last week. And since it's part of the booktubesff awards, it might be something I'll be picking up. I see nothing but great reviews of it, so I really hope I'll be able to get to it soon. But I also have an urge to just pick up Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, even though this is a chunky book. I have really been wanting to pick this up recently, and I think that is the time you usually pick up these chunkers. That's when you really feel like you want to pick them up. So it might be something that I'll be looking into over the next few days as well. But we'll see what I decide on once that happens. So yeah, apart from that, plans for the weekend, I may go to visit my mom tomorrow and my mom and dad tomorrow. I'm not sure about that. Otherwise, I don't have many plans actually, so I have a lot of reading time. Today I went for a big walk because I was feeling a little off, and usually just fresh air and walks just does a lot of great things for me mentally. It's become a little cloudy since then, but I'm happy that I went for a walk when I did, because it was really sunny and stuff. And I discovered some Easter decorations, which you'll see on here. It was difficult getting a great picture of it because it was so sunny, and yeah, but I was standing in the shadows trying to get the best picture I could get from that. But it was weird seeing that part of the city completely empty because there's no stores open. Anyway, this was all I have for you today. Definitely let me know in the comments down below if you have any exciting reading plans for the weekend. If you have read any of the books that I'm currently working on, what were your thoughts of them? Have you read any of the books that I've been talking about today that I finished, and what are your thoughts about those as well? But if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very, very soon. Goodbye.